Hey guys, how's it going, and welcome back to another episode. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the culture shock of moving out here to Mexico, or just moving abroad. I mean, I just happen to be living out here in a very beautiful area of Mexico called Merida Yucatan, Mexico. For some of you guys that have been following me for a while, you guys already know that I make videos about living in Mexico, what it's like to live abroad. I've been living out here for over 7 years, and I got a whole channel talking about all that stuff. And in today's video, we're actually going to be walking, right here from the center of the city. All right. Some of you guys know where I am, some of you guys don't know where I am, and we're going to be walking down south all the way to La Ermita while we talk about the subject of the culture shock. The culture shock that some of you guys are ready for, some of you guys are not ready for. Again, it's a big difference between visiting as a tourist and then actually living out here. So, all right, guys, as you guys already know, how we like to do here is I like to just point the camera forward, and I like to show everybody what's ahead of me, and I like to show everybody what's in front of me, so you guys can get a real point of view of what it actually looks like here. So again, this is the main central park of the city, where the cathedral is. There's a big government building. A Christian is actually working right there right now, restoring a building. Restoring a painting in that building, and so on and so forth. And again, I've talked about it before, since I've always around the area, and she's been working on the paintings here. Again, one there, one over there, and so yeah, she's working on those at the moment. And so I just happened to come out here in order to have lunch with her this afternoon, nice little surprise, hang out with the wife, and then, well, now we're on our way to make this video and talk about the culture shocks of living abroad. Because the thing is that, not everybody is ready for that move abroad. Not everybody really knows exactly what it entails. Some of you guys just think that, well, when you move abroad, it's going to be, exactly the same as when you were visiting and you were a tourist. Some of you guys go visit certain places out there, whether it's Mexico or whatever country, and a lot of you guys just assume that, the experience that you have there as a tourist is going to be the same exact one that you're going to have once you're there. And, sometimes, not everybody's ready when their expectations are shattered, when when the reality of what life is like out here, on a day-to-day basis, not just for the locals, but for you as well. Not everybody's ready to deal with the realities of that. So again, you guys know in my videos, I like to travel around the whole city, travel around Mexico, and I've shown you areas of this city, for example, and other cities in Mexico that look exactly just like the US does, very, very Americanized. Out here in its Centro, this is the historic center, and so out here is very different. You guys have seen me do many videos out here when I go to the market, when I'm driving around on my bicycle, when I'm walking around, and so on and so forth. And you guys have seen what it looks like, and so on and so forth. And but in today's video, again, I'm starting out in the very touristy area, and we're gonna make our way south until we get to La Ermita. And La Ermita is also very highly coveted neighborhood out here. And so we're going to be going from a highly coveted area, again, it's Centro, where a lot of people want to live. It's getting extremely gentrified. They're even filming movies out here, for crying out loud. We're going to go right through the city all the way till we get to another gentrified neighborhood that once upon a time was just a regular neighborhood, and so on and so forth. So, all right, once we get to this street over here, we're going to make a left, and then we're just going to go straight south. All right. I chose this path here because it was the easiest, most straightforward way, to get to our destination. And and again, so like parts of the culture shocks a lot of people are just not ready for are when they, for example, see vendors on the street, selling whatever it is they're selling. And a lot of people, they'll go on ahead, and start poo-pooing on a street vendor, saying like, oh, I'll never eat from a street vendor. I'll never eat from, from anywhere like that because, I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get, you know, feeling bad or anything like that. You know what, I just realized I'm right next to the bank. I actually need to go to the ATM real quick, so let me just pause real quick. Let me go to the ATM since I'm already here running errands, and then we're going to continue on our path south to La Ermita, talking about the culture shock of living out here. All right, guys, errand has been run. All right, so we're done. All right, finally got my money out of the bank. Now it's time to continue doing this video. So again, guys, you know, a lot of times when I'm out here in El Centro, I'm basically just running errands. You know, me or Christian we'll come and run our errands out here. You know, it's not for everybody. You know, for a lot of people, they don't want to run their errands out here in El Centro. They don't want to be, you know, around the people out here. They don't want to be buying in some of these stores. I totally understand. I get it. It's not for everybody. But part of the assimilating to the culture, you know, part of living out here on a certain budget and things like that, well, you have to, again, roll with those punches. You know, in order for you to really enjoy life abroad, well, you got to try to live like the locals as much as possible. Obviously, you're never going to have, you know, the same exact life as the locals. That's not, you know, that's not going to happen, depending on who you are. But for most people, it's not, you know, necessarily going to, you know, happen per se. All right, you know what we're going to do? We're going to get on the other side. All right, so where there's more lighting, all right, and more sun, so you guys can get a better look at everything out here. But yeah, again, you know, the culture shock, you know, for some people, like for example, when you're coming out here to Mexico or we're coming out here to Merida, you know, many times, you know, many of the buildings, you know, many of the businesses, you know, they're hidden behind a facade of a very ugly building, you know, for whatever the reason. And for many people, just the outside look is too much, you know, for them to even give that place a chance. I mean, right now, I mean, you saw when I went into the bank, it was just like a kind of regular building. I can't really film inside a bank. Otherwise, I would have shown you how awesome and modern that bank was, you know, but it's just a bank, you know, and a building that looked very similar to one of these out here. And so the reality is that, you know, parts of like living out here abroad, you know, but living out here in Mexico per se, is the fact that, you know, many people here, well, the majority of the people here have different priorities. And that's why many times you're going to see, you know, buildings that they might not be taken care of. You might see people driving, you know, not the newest car or the newest model of car, but instead, you know, whatever is the best option for them. All right, I wish I could be. All right, it's a little difficult for me to show you guys here with all the cars parked on the side of the road. All right, anyways, all right, there we go. We got a better view. But anywho, so that's the thing. And so for a lot of people, you know, it's too, you know, they're too much, you know, to be driving in a car like that. You know, they want to have a brand new car. They got to have the newest car, the newest iPhone, the newest, you know, of whatever it is. And so, you know, out here in Mexico, of course, there's going to be people that live like that. You know, there's going to be people that have that kind of like Americanized lifestyle, but for the most part, most people do not. You know, most people out there, you know, they have bigger priorities. It's like they don't have to have the nicest car. They don't have, you know, they can go on a bike, you know, like I do. I'm always on a bike, as you guys already know, or on my Chevrolet legs, you know, I'm walking around. You know, I am not too big to ride the bus, to ride my bicycle. Well, I am kind of big, but still, I'm not that big where I don't fit on a bicycle or I don't fit on a bus. But you know, you guys know what I mean. Meaning that, you know, I'm humble enough to not only live like the locals do, but also do as they do as once as you're in Rome, right? As they like to say. And so, you know, for me, it's very easy, you know, to assimilate to a life abroad, you know, to assimilate to living, you know, outside of the USA, because, well, I never felt at home in the USA. I never felt happy in the USA. All the things that you're always seeing here in my videos about Mexico, or that you see in other videos, because you see it, you know, all over the place. Hola. You know, you see look, child labor is a normal thing here. And it's not, you know, frowned upon per se. You know, that kid's not forced to work per se. You know what I mean? That's like their parents' business. You know, he's probably just watching the fruits, you know, probably watching a fruit stand, you know, for their parents. Where you leave a kid like that back home in the USA, oh my God, you already know you got child services, you already got whatever, let alone having a business set up there, you know, just on the side of this road there. So that's another thing too. It's like that freedom, you know, that freedom to like blast your music, you know, as loud as you want, and no one can really say much about it. You know, the fact that you can have your child, you know, working your fruit stand, the fact that you can set up a fruit stand, you know, on the side of the road, and so on and so forth. You know, a lot of those freedoms, you know, a lot of people, they frown upon that. And to me, it's always like the question I always ask is like, if you frown upon so many of the, you know, cultural things about living out here, then why are you even moving out here to begin with? You know, and you know, for most people, it's all about them. And so obviously, you know, they'll come out here, they try to change the culture, or they don't assimilate, or whatever it is, you know, like they won't come to the park like I'm coming to the park. They won't eat from the taco stand on the side of the road. You know, they won't do a lot of these things because, again, you know, for many reasons, you know, they are, you know, simply don't want to partake. You know, they don't want to. By the way, so we just we were just celebrating the Day of the Dead celebrations. I did a bunch of videos on the channel. You guys can watch those later on after you're done with this, in case you're curious, you know, just want to see the parade, want to see all the festivities. All right, so we're just here at the park taking a little detour so I can show you a few of the nice decorations. You can only imagine what this place looks like at night and how beautiful it must look when it's all, because all these things are supposed to be lit up, and very, very, very nice. But again, you look at all those vendors over there, as you guys can see, you know, they don't really have like a permit or anything like that. They have like a tiny permit, you know, just like a local permit. They just go to the local government office, and they'll just get a small a permit to just be able to sell in the park, you know, to be able to set up shop how they're setting up shop there, and just pay some taxes, you know. Again, you know, some people say it's like, oh, you know, I'm sure the cartel shows up and asks them to pay a certain fee. No, not really, not in this city. In this city, it's the government that shows up, and you got to pay your fee to park your ass there. So anyway, long story short, you know what I mean? But it's very minor. And, you know, these people don't have to have like a food handler's license. You know, they don't got to, you know, go to school. They don't have to have all these laws and permits. You know, they don't got, no, they just kind of set up there. And basically, if they get anybody sick, well, nobody will go eat there anymore, and they'll go out of business. It's as simple as that. You know, it's, you know, like kind of capitalism tends to be funny that way, where it just kind of takes care of itself. And look, just like I've talked about before about the buses, you know, when a lot of people were, you know, freaking out over the fact that like, oh my God, all the modernization and the digitization of Mexico and all these things that are happening. And I've already told you guys, you know, the minute that they have no access to the digital world, it's okay. They got the regular old buses there to take their place. And just like everything else, everyone here is cash only. You know, no one here is taking my credit card. Nobody out here is taking my debit card. None of that stuff. You know what I mean? It's all just cash only type of thing. So it's a lot of those things, you know, for a lot of people that are looking forward to the digitization of the world. Well, you know, maybe Mexico might not be your favorite spot, because in most parts of Mexico, it's cash only. Look, you know, Mexico is a modern country, and you can pay with your card in just about anywhere. But the reality is that most people will you know, want to accept cash only. And some people, they don't want to be handling all that cash. You know, just like me going to the bank to get some cash. Oh my God, you know, I don't want to be having all that cash. I want to have everything on my credit cards and on my debit cards and stuff like that. And so, you know, the reality is that that is not a reality for most Mexicans. Yeah, a lot of younger Mexicans and a lot of Mexicans that have, you know, worked very hard throughout the years, and they have themselves kind of set up. Then yeah, you know, many times they'll have, you know, the digital bank account and all this other stuff. But for the most part, it's mostly cash only. So look how nice this area is here. Very historical area. El Parque San Juan. These are some of the arches, you know, that would, you know, surround the city, you know, from back in the day, from the old city. This city is literally older than the USA. All right. You know, the cathedral in the center of the city that where we started off the show, that was built over 500 years ago. I mean, come on. you know, or around 500 years ago. In fact, I think this city is about to celebrate its 500th anniversary or something like that. And again, in the USA, you know, we're barely at 250 years. Look, another thing I know a lot of you guys always complain about is like the garbage. You're like, oh my God, Mexico's so dirty. You know, there's trash everywhere. You see it piling up on the side of the street. Again, the reason they pile the garbage on the side of the street there is because, well, there's garbage day today, and the garbage man is, you know, about to make their run around and pick up the garbage. Now, some people will have all right, 1 second. All right, some people will have you know, like in my neighborhood, or in the north, in the nicer homes, in the nicer neighborhoods, in some areas where they'll have you know, the gated communities, the really nice areas. I mean, I live in Centro, I mean, for crying out loud, but I live, you know, in a pretty normal, nice neighborhood, right? Anyways, in my neighborhood, there are a few people that have the trash bins like you would have in the USA, and they'll put the trash in the trash bins. I don't, because, you know, whatever, you know, maybe I'll get one at some point. The reason I put it in a bin is so that the animals, you know, are not in it. You know, the animals can stay out of it. All right. Oh wait, I don't think I've ever walked you guys down this street before, because yeah, look at the what's it, like the stone steps, the stone road here. It's very, very awful, very uneven. Oh man, I cannot imagine having to, you know, go through that with my bicycle. Ay, ay, ay. So look, check this out. So another thing about living out here in Mexico is like, look at that guy's a taxi. You know, he's just driving people around in that contraption that he made. You know, they're all over Mexico, they're all over the south out here. And so a lot of people, like for example, let's say that, you know, you don't have enough money for a car, you don't have enough money or resources to get a license, and so on and so forth, but you have enough to get something like that, a motorized delivery thing, and that's it, and that's all you need to do your, you know, again, to be a taxi, be a delivery driver. So out here in the city, again, we're in the city. I was surprised to see that guy here, because they usually don't come out through here because of the traffic. And again, they're dealing with like these buses, and they're dealing with these giant trucks, and it's very, you know, small. You know, like the streets, you know, they're pretty stretchy and a little difficult to maneuver. But anyways, they make it all over the city. In fact, the further out you go, the more you're going to see those little taxis. And you know, those little taxis will get you around for just like 50 cents, $1, a couple bucks, whatever. Depends on where you want to go. Oh. Heard someone behind me trying to get ahead of me there, and I'm walking a little slow so you guys can see a little bit more. But again, it's that freedom, you know, of no matter what your income level is, you know, there's no barriers to entry. You know what I mean? Let's say you really want to be a taxi driver or what have you. Well, you know, again, you can start off really, really small. I mean, I can make deliveries on my bicycle, for crying out loud. Obviously, I'm going to be a little limited on my range, but I can do just about anything, and you don't need much. Again, so for a lot of people out here, they do what they can with what they have, and that's a beautiful thing to see, because it's like you see people of all levels of income, doesn't matter where you are and what part of the city, and they're all trying to make it. You know, they're all trying their hardest, working very hard in order to create a better life for themselves, for their families, for their kids, for everybody. And the thing is, like I said, you know, you're gonna see brand new cars. You see, you know, out here, I mean, I've shown you guys, you know, we've seen Teslas, Tesla trucks, you know, BMWs, you know, Cadillacs, you name it, you know, you name it. They got it all. Ferraris, you name it. They have it all. But then again, you see people on their little motorized bicycle thingies, on, you know, walking, taking the bus, you know, having a whatever car, you know, just a car that turns on and will take them to their destination. You know, many times that's the most important thing. And it's just the little things like that, you know, the way that the people live out here is a lot more humble and a lot more realistic, and they don't have to keep up with the Joneses. You know, some people do, some people don't, but not everybody. Like again, you know, you could see it yourself. You know what I mean? You could see like how some houses, you know, you look at those are restored, all right, nice and gentrified already, and then you see these that are not yet. And you see all the friendly people. So that's another thing too. A lot of people, you know, might not you know, be ready for, which again, it caught me by surprise when I first moved to Mexico, because again, when I first moved out here, I was under the impressions that a lot of Americans were under, you know, the fact that, oh, it's dangerous out here, you got to be careful, you got to this, you got to that, and again, remember, this is 7.5 years ago. There's not really that much information out there online or anything like that, so I had to kind of figure it out on my own. And so when I first moved out here, and I would walk around, you know, whether I was filming or not, and I'm walking around and people are very nice and very friendly and want to stop and talk, and they want to share things with me and all this other stuff. And then I come from like the big city, and usually, you know, those are signs of danger sometimes, you know what I mean? Because it's like, well, why is this guy talking to me? Why is this guy so friendly? Why is this guy, what does he want? What is he this? What is he that? And so for a lot of us, I get it, you know, we're a little standoffish, not to any fault of our own. It's just that the environment that we live in back in the USA and Canada and stuff like that these days. But that's the thing that a lot of people are just not ready for too. We're part of the cultural change, you know. And I know Mexico is not the only country in which the people are very nice, but it is a very nice country. People here are very nice, very curious, very inquisitive. And if you're not ready for that, you're not expecting that, you might, you know, again, you might be shutting them off or pushing them away because you're expecting the worst. You know, you might be expecting, you know, them to, you know, why are they so friendly? Why do they want to know so much about me? Are they trying to rob me? Are they trying to, you know, why do they want to know this information? Why do they want to know where I'm from? Why do they want to know whatever it is? And again, you know, guys, you know, you got to use common sense. You know, sometimes common sense ain't so common, but you got to use that common sense. And again, you got to know when and where and what to share. But if, you know, you're just walking down this street and all of a sudden like an old lady comes out of their house and is being nice and wants to, oh, hey, well, who are you? Why are you filming? Where are you from? Where, I mean, you know, they want to know about me. And it's like, oh my God, you're from the United States. Oh my God, you're Cuban. You speak Spanish. Oh my God, that is so cool. That is so whatever it is. All right. And so a lot of people, you know, eventually, you know, they warm up to it. A lot of people eventually open up, and, you know, it's part of the charm of living out here and being out here. But not everybody's ready for that, you know. And again, it took me a while to assimilate. A lot of what helped me was my wife. Because a lot of times, you know, I would be more standoffish, or I would be a little meaner, or whatever it is, just, you know, protecting myself, protecting the family, protecting, right? And then later on, you know, I would find out that I was overreacting, or perhaps I, you know, was a little bit too mean or too harsh or too whatever it is. And so throughout the years, it's softened me up. And now I'm extremely nice, you know, very nice, you know, especially with the locals and other Mexicans and things like that, because, well, I don't know, I've just been living out here for so long, and it's a lot nicer. It's a lot better to be nice, and it's a lot, you know, more soul nurturing, you know, to be a good person and things like that. And so, all right, guys, you know, we're already approaching the neighborhood of La Ermita. Hola, buenos días. And so we're approaching, you know, the area of La Ermita. You know, that's why I like to do these videos, because, you know, I like to go out to walk, to talk, get a little exercise, you know, as I'm walking, and you know, distracting myself, you know, talking to you guys. You know, lose track of time, and before we know it, we're here, you know. But anyways, this is one of those areas that also got extremely gentrified. You could see it, you know, in the buildings. You could see how it looks. You know, it's very nice, very pretty. Again, during the Day of the Dead, you know, this whole area was, you know, party central. In fact, where we're going to right now at La Ermita, that's where the Day of the Dead events ended. You know, and remember, it was a parade, and it went from the cemetery all the way to La Ermita. The video I filmed the other day, that wasn't at Centro. That was the following day, another parade in another part of the city. So, but yeah, you know, another thing a lot of people, they might just not be ready for, I mean, is the language barrier. You know, so, you know, for me, a lot of people was like, oh, Jose, how come you picked Mexico? How come you picked a Latin American country? And I'm like, well, for starters, I speak the language, and I know part of the culture. And so to me, it was a lot easier for me to make the transition out here, as opposed to you know, as opposed to try to learn a new language or a new culture or new everything. Again, I had to learn a brand new culture out here. Let's not get that twisted. because again, my culture is American and Cuban. And so, you know, like the Day of the Dead thing is like something, you know, brand new to me. I never even saw the movie Coco. You know, I know some of you guys, you know, all you guys have seen it. But just to give you an example, right? And, you know, with that being said, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I knew that I was going to have to get used to the culture, get used to a lot of different things. And, hola, buenos días. And so on and so forth. But the reality is that, you know, the language was not going to be a problem. So this is why I chose Latin America. I chose Mexico. And there's a lot of countries out there that speak English or speak whatever other language you speak. I know there's a lot of people in the audience that speak Spanish, and well, you might not want to come to Mexico. There's a bunch of countries in Latin America that you could go to. And again, let's say that, you know, you speak French. There's a lot of countries out there that speak French. You know, there's a lot of countries out there that speak English. Do your research. They're out there. Again, like literally, if you want to just speak English, all right, and you want to live in a very similar environment, obviously not the same, you know, but a very similar environment, you can just move to Belize. You know, Belize is right around the corner. You know, Belize is not that far from here. You know, it's like a few hours away, and that's English only. You know, so I mean, that's the thing. So you got to prepare yourself for that. You got to make it as easy as possible, because as much as you might want to come out to another country and live in another country, start over in another country, it's going to come with a lot of difficulties. And you don't want to get discouraged before you get to assimilate and you really get to set your feet in. And so you got to make it as easy as possible for yourself. And so, you know, for a lot of people out there, you know, there's, you know, a more difficult learning curve than others. For me, and many other people out there that have lived very frugally, you know, lived with a budget, you know, lived a certain lifestyle, well, it's a lot easier of a transition. But if you come from you know, a few bucks, you know, a little bit of privilege or whatever it is, and now all of a sudden you gotta like start over, you gotta like all of a sudden start learning how to be frugal, learning how to live like I've been living my whole life. In fact, I saw this on that show Sunny in Philadelphia, you know, where, you know, everyone's freaking out because the economy is going down the tubes, and you know, like, you know, the people from the show are basically looking at the people freaking out and saying, "Oh, you must be new poor because we're old poor." Oh, look at that! I didn't know that the tour bus comes through here. Cool. That's pretty smart of the tour bus to come through here. It's a nice area for them to show. But anyways, as I was saying, what was I saying? I forgot what I was saying. Oh yeah, you know, the whole idea of learning to be poor, learning to be frugal, or just, you know, again, whether you learned it when you were very young, or you've learned it many years ago, or you've been living like that your whole life, or, you know, for some people that are just, this is a brand new thing. And so obviously, if this is a brand new thing for you, it's going to be even more difficult, higher learning curve. Those are the same ones that come out here and they complain about everything being way too expensive. And by the way, so we just passed La Ermita. We're gonna keep walking around, all right, and just keep it down. So if we walk all the way south, we're gonna get to the cemetery. All right, remember we did a tour of the cemetery a few weeks ago. So anyways, as I was saying, so, you know, that's the thing too, you know, for a lot of people, you know, they come out here and they don't know how to be frugal, you know, they don't know how to live amongst their means or anything like that. You know, I'm gonna let these guys go through first. There's a lot of traffic. You know, for a lot of people that they don't know how to live amongst their means, you know, they don't know how to be frugal, they don't know how to do any of these things, you know, things are just gonna be even more difficult, because again, those are the same people that end up moving to places like the north of the city, or other parts of the city, or other parts of Mexico, or other parts of the world. They have a very similar aesthetic and have a lot of similarities to where they came from. And what a lot of people just don't realize is that comes with a price tag, and a price tag that a lot of people might not be willing, you know, to pay. And that's just the reality of it. And for example, if you come to a little store like this, you know, things are going to be a lot more affordable, all right, and a lot more cheaper, whatever, than if you go to the OXXO, or if you go to the grocery store, or if you go to the whatever. But some people, you know, they don't even want to be caught dead in one of these places. Even some local Mexicans don't even want to. They want to shop in the very nice, you know, air-conditioned, temperature-controlled area, or whatever it is. By the way, look at this guy. This guy's walking faster than me, huh? Anyways, but that's the thing. And so there's just so many little things. So the reality is that when you're thinking about moving abroad, you got to try and make it as easy as possible for yourself. Don't make it even more difficult than when it already is. And these are the things that that people don't talk about when it comes to assimilating to the culture. There's a lot of things involved. Look, right now this is a two-way street. You know what I mean? It seems like it might just be a one-way street, but it's just random as hell like that. And that's part of the safety concerns about living out here. Not the cartel, not bad hombres, trying to take your social security check away. No, it's you're driving on the street and it's a two-way street or a one-way street before you know it. I showed you, again, you've seen the sidewalks, sometimes they're uneven. That's why it's even more difficult to make these videos, because I'm walking around, I'm talking, I'm filming. I gotta look down at the ground constantly, to make sure I don't trip and fall or slip, like I just almost did right there. And so on and so forth. When I'm on my bike, you guys already seen I've had accidents on the bike. Sometimes you just hit that bump on the road there, whatever. So it's a lot of things like that, that again, many people, they think they're ready for it, but they're not. All of a sudden, again, we haven't really seen any, and we really don't see many, when we're out and about. Very rarely. There used to be more, and they usually tend to be in neighborhoods. But another thing about life out here, life abroad, is that you're going to see a lot of animals on the street. You're going to be seeing a lot of just street animals. Sometimes they got owners, sometimes they don't. And it can be very heartbreaking for a lot of people. Like in my own neighborhood, I walk Gizmo every day, and there's a bunch of street dogs that live in the neighborhood. And when I first moved there, I thought that a lot of those dogs didn't even have an owner, until again, as the days went on, and I would keep walking around the neighborhood with the Gizmo, I would see the people, certain people. I would see certain people would feed the dogs. Certain people would go on ahead and there's a lot of noise out there. Anyways, certain people, all right, hold on a second. It's a lot of noise right there. But anyway, certain people taking care of the dogs, certain people taking care of the cats, certain people taking care of the animals. Sometimes, again, as it was getting colder, I would see the animals, getting a little sweater. They all got fed, and things like that. And so, not all of them, but it was something that some things that you see out here, where, again, a lot of times you'll see dogs and cats on the streets, but they have owners, and they're taken care of. All right, I'm gonna go on ahead. That thing is really loud. I don't know how loud it's gonna be on the camera, so I'm gonna take a quick little break, and then we're gonna see what we do here with the video. This guy, look at this guy right here, super loud, so freaking loud that you can hear him from miles away. all right, the guy took the corner over here, and I don't hear him anymore, so let's continue with the video here. But yeah, guys, at the end of the day, it's that freedom, that a lot of people might not be, willing to embrace. You might think you're embracing it, you might think you might want it, but then when you get that real freedom, a lot of people cannot handle it. So for example, and obviously I'm filming the video, I got interrupted. I should be mad, I should be upset, but how can I be mad or upset? That poor guy, are you kidding me? He's out there dragging his bicycle, trying to sell tamales or sell whatever it is he's trying to sell. Why am I gonna hate on the guy? I'm out here just filming a video. I'm here having fun compared to him. And so it gives you more perspective on things. It gives you more perspective on life. You could come out here and set yourself very nicely and get yourself a very, very nice house, but your neighbors, they might be living in poverty. And again, this is, some people embrace that, and they make friends with those people, and they see how nice people are no matter what the income gap is. And other people shy away from that. Other people, they want to be in a gated community. They want to be in an area where everybody's the same. They don't want to embrace some of those things, and so on and so forth. And so again, a lot of it really has to do with you more than anything else. And whether or not you're willing to embrace the life out here. And so yeah, you know, it's actually pretty cool walking down this street after the Day of the Dead events, because the Day of the Dead events, you know, were basically, you know, just a few days ago, literally, wasn't that long ago. And usually, you know, what they do is that they close off all these streets to traffic, and everybody sets up on both sides of the street, you know, selling food, selling souvenirs. They have their altars, you know, where they're celebrating the death of their family member or what have you. And it's really, really, really cool, and it's really nice. But anyways, yeah, it just goes as far as the eye can see, basically, till we get to the cemetery, which I have no idea how far we are from that cemetery right now. Let me check my phone and see exactly where we are. But in the meantime, you know, you guys can just check out the sites and see where we are and see how interesting we are. So look, this is someone that's obviously, you know, collecting bottles and cans and things like that. And, you know, one of the few homeless people, or one of the few, you know, people kind of like down on their luck you're gonna find and see, really, hanging around the city. And, you know, that guy has somewhere to sleep. You know, that guy has somewhere to go. All right, you know what? I think we're just gonna keep going all the way to the cemetery. Hopefully the battery makes it till there. So, but yeah, you know, that's the thing, guys. You know what I mean? Like, it's the life out here is totally different than the life in the USA. And so if you're looking to basically replicate, you know, a lot of the life you've had back home, and you're not willing to sacrifice anything at all, you're probably gonna have a, you know, more difficult time, you know, assimilating and enjoying life out here, or, you know, just enjoying life abroad, just moving abroad in general. Again, it's not for everybody. I totally understand it. That's why I make these videos. But, you know, the reality is that, you know, one of the main reasons I live out here, I moved out here. I mean, it wasn't the original reason to start off with, you know, why I moved out here. I moved out here for many reasons, all right? You guys, if you don't know my story, you guys can check it out on my channel, and I go through my whole story. But look, the reality is that at this point, you know, the main reason I want to live here, the main reason I love it out here, is because it's nothing like the life that we have in the USA. It does not resemble much of the life that people are living in the USA or Canada or many parts of the, you know, Western first world or what have you. You know, people out here are still living pretty normal lives that they have been living for decades. And again, just the cultural difference is enough of a difference to, you know, you know, for a lot of people to embrace. So again, for me, at this point, after living out here for 7.5 years, you couldn't pay me enough money to go and live in the USA or Canada or anything like that. I mean, I don't want that life, even if you gave it to me. Are you kidding me? You know, after everything I went through to get out of there, you know, why would I ever want to go back? Why would I ever, you know, want to live that life again? All right, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to walk down the middle of the street so I can get the best view here for you guys. All right, so we got an auto parts store, you know, AutoZone competitor here. I think I see the cemetery up ahead. Let's see how far we can go. But anyways, so, and that's the thing, guys. And I mean, for a lot of you guys, you know, you are dying, you know, to get out here. You're dying to move abroad. You know, you can't get out here fast enough, because that's the thing. You want to embrace the cultural difference. You want to learn the new language. You already know the new language. The fact that life out here is nothing like the life you guys are living back home. You know, all these little things like that are selling points to many of you guys as it pertains to, you know, living abroad. You know, you guys don't want, you know, for a lot. So again, depends on who you are. If you want to live a very similar life, like you want to live a similar life or a better life than what you have in the USA, then yeah, sure, you know what I mean? It's probably not in your best interest to move to another country, because again, sure, you know, you might be able to afford more stuff out here, kind of, sort of, you know, meaning, you know, rent is cheaper, food is cheaper, certain things are a lot more affordable, but that's not the main reason for wanting to move to another country. It's not just the affordability, but it's a quality of life that comes with it. And some people get it here. Yeah, man, if I'm waiting for all these people, I'll never. Anyways, I'm never gonna get through. I just gotta just barrel right through here. So for a lot of people that don't want to live that life anymore, moving abroad is a solution. It really is, because it finally gives you that sense of adventure, that journey. It gives you purpose again. It's like all these things that you were missing in your life, that most of you guys are missing in your life. Most of you guys out there live boring lives or terrible lives, meaning, terrible job, terrible financial situation, no chance for any kind of advancement of any kind, of anything. And then I could go on and on. And so for you guys, the whole idea of starting over, but having a better quality of life, right from the get-go and going forward. I mean, for many of you guys, you're more than happy to take that chance, to take that, to embrace that change. But it's not for everybody. And because a lot of people, again, the more you have, I've said this before as well, the more you have in the USA, the more resources you have, the more you've worked for, the more you have, period, in the story, whatever it is, the more difficult it's going to be, for you to, all right, let's get on the other side of the street here, the more difficult it's going to be for you, to make that transition, to make that change, and so on and so forth, simply because, again, the more you have, the more you have to let go of, the more you have to change, the more difficult everything just becomes. The less you have, sure, things are extremely difficult for you where you're at right now, but the reality is that you have a higher probability of success when moving abroad, because you're basically at the bottom already. But when you move abroad, you actually have chances of advancement. Again, it's all up to you. You got to work hard, you got to sacrifice, you got to dedicate yourself, you got to do a lot. All right, it's not just going to come overnight. But with that said, it can definitely be done. You know what I mean? It's a lot easier. Again, it really just boils down to the individual, more than anything else, whether or not you're going to be able to embrace this cultural change or not. Because the reality is that it's not even, it's just basically, do you want to embrace it or not? And if you're coming out here kicking and screaming, it's going to be a lot more difficult, as opposed to that, if you're coming out here, and you know what I'm saying, like you can't sell your stuff fast enough, you can't do it faster, it's going to be very different. A lot of it has to do with the mentality. A lot of it has to do with you more than anything else. So, all right, look at that. We made it all the way to the cemetery. So we actually walked, believe it or not, the whole path of the Day of the Dead, but without any of the festivities, just traffic. It was a regular Wednesday afternoon. And yeah, I apologize for the cloudy skies. Again, right now, we are in November, and this is the weather changing to winter, and it's like humid. We're ending hurricane season, we're ending the wet season, and so a lot of the clouds are not really rain clouds per se. They're really just weather clouds, clouds that bring in cold weather and things like that. So all right, we got the cemetery up ahead, so we made it. I can't believe we made it all the way down here. I thought we were just gonna go to the Ermita, but put in that workout today. Yeah, because I missed my workout this morning, so now, man, that guy on the bike almost hit me, or should I say, I almost hit him. I should not be in the middle of the street, my fault. So, which is another thing, I'm gonna end it with this, is that responsibility. Once you're out here, you gotta be responsible for your actions. You gotta be responsible for everything you do. There's no state or in government entity out there that's gonna be out there, be out there to protect you from your dumb moves. Again, that guy would have hit me on the bike. It's my fault. I'm probably gonna end up paying for that, so out of my pocket. I ain't got no walking insurance, so it is what it is. And there's a cemetery, guys. Look at that. Wow, we made it. we made it. We got some flowers. I got no one in the cemetery, so I got no flowers to buy. I already got Christmas flowers. So anyways, all right, look at that. We made it to the cemetery. Look at that. So yeah, it's pretty cool because again, there was so much activity here just the last few days because of the Day of the Dead. And again, you guys saw me literally come out here with the bike, you know, not too long ago. We did a complete tour of the cemetery. In fact, I'm gonna link that video at the end of this one so you guys can watch that, so you guys can, you know, again, see exactly what the cemetery looks like. You know, did a pretty cool video there in here, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. So all right, look at that. Pretty cool. So here's a great way to end it. You know, basically, oof, very hot. Oof, walked a lot, man. I'm tired. There's a lot of stuff today already. This was just the last thing I had to do before heading home. So all right, guys, I don't want to be too loud out here. I see there's people still out here observing the holiday or whatever. So anyways, guys, the last thing I wanted to say was that, again, you know, stop thinking about it. A lot of you guys, you're always just making excuses and creating reasons in your own head as to why you can't make it, you can't do it, you can't whatever. And as I was saying in the video that I did when I was out here on the cemetery, was that, you know, you got to make that move before you end up there. You're basically already 1 foot in. So what are you waiting for? So you know, if you don't embrace things like the cultural change, if you don't embrace, you know, a lot of the things, the difficulties that this journey is going to bring, you're just not going to make it. It's as simple as that. So at the end of the day, you're either going to continue suffering, living the life that you live right now, or you're just going to suffer a little bit through this transition, and at the end of the day, end up in a very happy place. In fact, what most people end up saying to themselves is, man, I wish I would have done this sooner. So all right, guys, with all that being said, it's time for me to head out of here. Again, if you guys like these videos and you want to see more, please check out my channel, check out my website. Got tons of free information. If you want to sit down and talk to me, you know, have a consultation one-on-one, and talk to me about, you know, moving abroad, moving to Mexico, I can help you out with that. Again, all the information is down below, down on my website. Again, you want to help support the channel, you know, again, I sell t-shirts, I sell all kinds of things, you know, merch on the website as well. You know, come check that out. And I think that's it, guys. I think I'm gonna wrap it up, you know. So again, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it. And you already know the deal. You know, if you like this kind of content, look at this statue. Pretty cool, huh? Pretty nice out here. All right, we gotta end it. It's already a long enough video. All right, guys, so you already know the deal. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to please like, please subscribe, please share, please hit the bell icon. But more importantly than anything else, please continue to stay awesome. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.